Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
I am ABRAR SALAH.
I am Shaikhan AL-HEBSHI.
Happy Against Odds is a 2D side-scrolling platformer video game that focuses on a fantasy story themed around optimism, pessimism, and humans' mentality,
while providing a fun and challenging gameplay experience.
The game is developed using Unity, Adobe Animate, Adobe Premiere, and Adobe After Effects.
We treat video games as a high form of art, and that's what we try to express through our game. Happy, the main protagonist, is an optimistic individual who wishes to spread his ideology and positive outlook on the world.
The story begins as Happy goes to study university overseas in the City of Wonders, a cool city known for its entertainment potential.
At some point, his consciousness separates out of the blue, and he finds himself aware of himself in both a real dimension and the negative dimension, as if he has two bodies existing in two different spaces at the same time.
A mysterious voice named Grand Voice will be guiding Happy in his journey in the negative dimension.
Grand Voice explains how the negative dimension contains monsters who are a physical representation of humans' negative feelings, like sadness, anger, regret, grief, you name it.
Throughout the game, Happy will eliminate these monsters to rid people of their negative feelings.
However, the Grand Voice will tell Happy that he needs to meet two conditions to free anybody from their negative feelings.
First, he needs to convince that person of logically working solution in the real dimension.
And as a result, their boss, who acts as the core of their negativity, will be weakened, allowing Happy to finish them off.
So in Chapter 1, Happy will help his university mate Balkis, who is mentally suffering due to homesickness, and how others superficially judge her to be careless, despite her countless attempts at maintaining both her social activities and academic performance.
Chapter 2 features Breaker's story, who is the most famous dancer in the City of Wonders, but despite his fame, he feels like he is leading a fake life, causing him to have personal doubts and insecurities.
Chapter 3 is about Shihab, a former basketball player who became disabled on wheelchair due to an accident, forcing him to give up his lifetime dream of becoming a basketball player.
In all chapters, Happy will be engaging with these characters in the real dimension through conversations, all the while eliminating their monsters and bosses in the negative dimension.
In the fourth and final chapter, Happy's best friend Ustura will pass away.
Happy will feel sad, but will accept this outcome. However,
he will face his own negativity monsters, and turns out his subconsciousness is feeling all the negativity which his consciousness kept suppressing this whole time.
Then a long sequence of events occurs where he discovers that he'd always been reliant on Ustura to find solutions for people's problems, as nobody else can understand him the way Ustura does.
His concern about others' problems led to the bosses of others being his own boss.
Everybody supports Happy after he lost Ustura. Happy gains inspiration from them, enabling him to eliminate his own boss.
But due to his new profound resolutions, the Grand Voice cancels his access to the negative dimension. But it's okay,
because Happy didn't have to rely on this fantasy world in the first place.
If his friends inspired him in a natural fashion, then there is no need for the use of fantasies.
Everyone is happy.
Each chapter contains a certain character's story, and all chapters feature the same flow. Intro of the character, part 1 of their negative dimension, conversation with the character, part 2 of their negative dimension, conversation with their boss fight, and finally the ending scene. And of course, everything is given context. Balkis' negative dimensions are representing a version of her university's environment. Breakers 1 features a hyperactive version of the City of Wonders to represent his pretension to follow the city's trends at the expense of his well-being. Shihab's negative dimension is a gloomy, darkish cave. Final chapter features a dark forest where Happy's final confrontation will take place. I programmed the backgrounds to feature a parallax effect that gives layers of depth as the player progresses in the level. The real dimension consists of several locations where the player can navigate between them by going off screen. Locations consist of the university's garden, city center, Breaker's stage, Blue City, and Hyperdrive. There are also the Breakers backstage, hall and library, which are all accessible by pressing up near their entrances. In each chapter, the player will be going back and forth between the real dimension and the negative dimension, depending on the story sequence. And yes, our game is linear, so it's less likely that the player will be lost. The player can interact with NPCs who will provide information about the characters and the City of Wonders lore. NPCs of the negative dimension will provide an insight of the negative dimension's nature.
The tutorial level teaches the basics: running, low and high jump depending on how long the player presses the jump button, slash, getting down off thin platforms. When the player gets damaged, they become invincible for 1 second, allowing them to escape unfortunate situations. Heart shapes are checkpoints. Healing rocks heal the player when slashed. Chapter 1 unlocks dash attack. The player gains invincibility frames during the dash, which is good to avoid taking damage by dashing through enemies, bullets and spikes. Upper dash pushes the player upwards and damages enemies. Chapter 2 features the jumping pads and unlocks double jump. Chapter 3 features moving platforms and unlocks a power circle, which freezes and damages enemies. The fact that players will unlock different abilities while progressing in the game will keep them invested and look forward to new mechanics. Chapter 1 has Blob and One-Eyed Monster, which are stable. Fly Spike, which follows the player, gets pushed back when damaged. Fluff moves slowly and can only be damaged by the dash attack.
I gave the monsters blinking and breathing animations along with fire and spinning animation.
The chapter's boss attacks using its hands and teleports. The dots represent the boss's next teleportation location. Once both hands are eliminated, the boss starts dashing from right to left. Chapter 2 introduces shooters that shoot bullets.
The shooter shrinks in preparation before stretching to shoot.
Blob gets upgraded to jump towards the player. Fly Spike gets upgraded as well to be bigger, faster, and goes through platforms. The chapter's boss will fly left and right and get down at random times. After a number of hits, the boss gets stunned, giving an opportunity for the player to damage it, but speakers will become obstacles, moving across the screen. After the second stun, thunder attacks start appearing in random spots of the stage. Gradually adding these elements like speakers and thunder would keep the players guessing throughout the fight.
I also gave the boss flying and stun animations.
In Chapter 3, the shooter is upgraded to keep shooting towards the player's direction, and these clouds move left and right and attack with the thunder.
I added an electricity animation above it.
The boss's pattern is simple, moving in zigzag, then drops down from 5 different locations. Causing enough damage will spawn another boss. If the health sum of both reaches a certain amount, a third boss will appear to add spice to the boss fight. The final chapter has a survival level that's designed to make the player invest in all the mechanics they have learned throughout the game. The final boss starts with the first boss, then adds another boss each 30 seconds, so the player needs to eliminate these bosses as fast as possible before it gets crowded.
The game starts with an animation of our logo, then the title screen. Options: you can go to a certain chapter or delete save data. Each of the 6 characters except Grand Voice has 9 different expressions to express emotions depending on the flow of the conversation. Also, each character has a unique name design that represents their personality. A dialog box has 2 frames for character expressions, a text box, and a spot for the speaker's name. The game over screen appears when the player loses all their health. They can either go back to the main menu or retry from the last checkpoint. The pause menu features the same choices along with exit to desktop. This checkbox allows player to be invincible and not lose health when taking damage. It's made actually for anyone wishing to test the game. Each meter features a different color and an icon that represents their respective function.
And special thanks to Basil for making our game's original soundtracks.
And to Aima Lucian for being the vocalist of our ending credits original theme song.
In conclusion, we developed Happy Against Odds with passion and love, trying to promote the medium of video games as high art.
That allows us to discuss our ideals similar to how book writers express themselves through the medium of books. And we hope that you enjoy our game.